In this video, I want to show you a couple of things using View and Insert. So if we go to the View tab in OneNote and look at rule lines, grid lines, and paper size, we're going to look at those things. And then within Insert, if we can look at how page templates work, there's a lot of nice tools here. So within OneNote, let's say I start, well, we'll go ahead with View. We'll start with View. So inside our View menu, over on the left-hand side, far left, we can certainly look at how OneNote is appearing on our screen, okay? You can split your screen so that OneNote is just in a portion of your screen, and then you can still watch a video or read a section of text or interact with whatever your independent learning work is while having your notebook open on the right-hand side. So that's a really nice, convenient feature that's from View. Again, that's this docking. You can also go full page normal view, but page color, I don't use this much, but if it's helpful and you wanted to color code certain pages to draw your attention, it's there. Let me add a new page, and I'm going to pull it back up in my 1-1 experiment here, and we'll say 1-1 rule lines. Or actually, you know what? My homework page might have been perfect for that. So I'll go to my homework page 1-1, and I can turn on rule lines. So now if I were to write on this, I'm going to flip my screen so that I can write on it flat. And I can use my fingers to zoom in and out. And maybe I decide that I want to work a problem here, and the first problem that I'm wanting to do is just that pen's kind of thick. I'll erase that. Go here. This is pretty intuitive. You can figure that part out yourself. You can also set up your own defaults, but let's say that we just want a sample problem, something like graph f of x equals 2x minus 7. And so now if I say, all right, well, I'm going to set up my grid. And right now I'm doing this all by hand, okay? I'm using my hand holding the Lenovo Active Pen, and I'm drawing from scratch, just like I would on a sheet of notebook paper, but I'll have a forever digital record of it, and I can submit it digitally as a PDF, which is really important in these days. So if I mark let's say I go -2, -4, -6, -8, if I have a y-intercept of -7, and then if I have a slope of 2, okay, so I'm using the same scale here, easy peasy, and let's see, I could have a graph that looks something like this, okay? So I was not super precise there. I tried to be while also rushing, but if I don't quite like what I ended up with, it's not hard for me to erase and try again. If I want to be really particular about it, and I start using, so again, right now I'm basically using pencil and paper just in digital form, but we could use some of the digital tools as well. So I could turn on the line tool, and I could use the line tool to help me draw a straighter line. And it's not perfect, but it's decent. But really what I wanted to show here was View rule grid lines. Okay, if we go to my other page here and just kind of play with the grid lines for a moment. So my rule lines, I can change the spacing. You can figure out what type of spacing works well for you. Various forms of probably college rule and wide rule, etc. If you want to use graph paper, you can turn on the grids, the grid lines. And again, you can change the size of those grid lines. I've also found that this can be a really convenient way if you just want to create some graph paper real quickly. You could use something like the snipping tool. And once you're showing some graph paper on your page, you could say, all right, I want to copy that. And now if I go back to no lines at all, and I paste it, now I have a graphic of a grid. And so this graphic of a grid might make it even easier for me to accurately sketch. And again, I'm still using the pen right now, I'm not using the line tool, but it's now like I'm writing on graph paper. Now at the moment, this graph paper that I'm writing on is an image that can still be moved around. So if I didn't want that to happen, if you right click on anything that you have pasted in there like an image, you could say set picture to background. And if you do that, then now when I click on it, it's like part of the page, okay? So even if I draw and I lasso my drawing and move it, only my drawing is going to move because I locked that picture down to the page. Okay, so that was ruled lines and grid lines. You can also tell it if you want to always look like notebook paper, you can turn this on and say, you know what, I always want pages with ruled lines. So cool options right there. Up at the top, we have a default page title right here on every new page. And these dates and timestamps happen whenever you create the page, but you can modify them. So if you've created a page in anticipation and you didn't actually get to your work at that time, it's very simple to override these. So this is not like an accurate time stamp. It just saves you the hassle of writing the date on your page. Same thing with the time. Again, these are not accurate timestamps because I can manually choose to change them, but I think it's really nice record of when you started work on a project. And let's see. If I get out of there, there we go. So I do have the option to turn the page title off if you don't want that, if you just want blank paper. I tend to keep it on. For paper size, right now I'm working on an infinitely large sheet of paper. So if the sentences that I'm writing and the pictures that I'm drawing, the notes that I'm adding want to come over here on the far right-hand side of the page is just going to grow with me. And so in a digital sense, that can be very nice. But if you're anticipating printing your work out, it will take your large page and chop it up into smaller pieces. Sometimes that goes the way that you would expect it to, and sometimes it might not chop it up the way you'd hope it would chop it up, or it shrinks it so small that it's not super useful. So with some experimentation, you might decide not to keep it on auto. Personally, I prefer to just anticipate this ahead of time and set my page size on letter. And so by setting my page size on letter, then I'm working with an 8.5 by 11 all the time. So if I were to say something like, all right, add new page, and I make it letter sized, then I know from the get-go that when this is going to print the same way that I see it on the screen. And if I want it to have notebook paper ruled lines on it, I can use that. We can also save these as templates. So right now, if I were to say save current page as template, then what this will do, I should give it a name. I'm not going to save it yet because there's one more thing I want to add. But if you give it a name like notebook paper, then if you say set current template for new pages in the current section, then remember this section right now is chapter 1, right? So if I save this as the default, then anytime I hit a new page within chapter 1, I will get this default. I won't have to change my settings and my rule lines. So if you know that most of the time in your history class you want ruled paper and most of the time in your math class you want grid line paper, you can set up defaults so that every time you hit add page, you get what you want. Or don't change the defaults at all, and you can manually change it whenever you need to. So I'm going to hit cancel, because one more thing that I think is really cool and very convenient is, as long as I'm thinking about setting up a default, if I click up here, notice, so right now I'm just using my mouse and I'm clicking in different pages or different places on the page, and it's ready for me to type when I do that, or write if I'm using the stylus. So if I click up here and I type my name, student name, which is not actually my name. So maybe I type Laurie Cotton, because that actually is my name. But you shouldn't type my name. You should type your name. I'm going to go back to student name. There we go. I put student name just kind of up here, or maybe like just a first initial and a last name or something. I do want to make sure that it stays on the page. There we go. And now if I save this current page as a template, I could call this notebook paper and set as default template for new pages in the current section, and I say save. Okay, so now if I start doing my work here, so maybe I'm taking notes, maybe I had an independent activity that I was supposed to do with a video, and maybe while I was doing the video, there were a couple of questions that I was supposed to answer for the next time I'm in class discussion with my class. And then maybe there was supposed to be a problem that I'm supposed to solve. I don't know. So I'm working through all this, okay, right? And so I get to the end of my page and I'm out of room. And instead of flipping over my page or getting a new sheet of paper out of my notebook, I can just say add page. And since I changed the default, all of my setup is already there. I am going to go back and add some titling information. So this first one we started on, let's say this is still 1-1. Maybe this was my independent activity. All right, clearly I need to take advantage of a built-in spell check. There we go. And then the second page that I created, maybe that was 1-1 and it was all of our final thoughts or something. And so I'll take these 2 pages that I just created just now and pull them up in my 1-1 section and make them sub pages of the 1-1 initial kind of starting information. And this page that I was playing with my graph on it, turns out I don't need that, so I will just go ahead and delete that. And so now I can collapse all of 1-1 and I could move on to 1-2. If I want to see the details within 1-1, I can expand those. All right, so make sure I covered everything. I talked about rule lines, grid lines, paper size, page templates, custom templates, and default templates. Okay, so I mentioned custom and defaults, but I didn't really show you any of the page templates that are already built in. So let me show you that. If I say add page, and if we go to insert page templates. So these are a bunch and they're just whatever the most recent ones you used are. But if I go to page templates, it'll show me all of them. So we can go to my templates and now notice this, the notebook paper, that's the one that I just created. If we go to academic and look at some of these, we can have simple lecture notes. So ideas that have been put together thinking, oh, this might be helpful for someone. They can type right here where their homework is. Maybe the teacher has listed specifically what the goals of the day that were. And then maybe after your class, you go in and you summarize for yourself what the most important facts were. So there are quite a few different variations on potential academic templates that you could just choose to adopt. Notice that I'm clicking, as I click on each one of these, I'm getting a new page here, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and call this one page templates, just so I can keep track of what I currently have going on. And then I'll make these other ones sub-pages inside that. And this one is actually my default notebook paper, is what I called that template. So if I come back to this later, I can find what I was playing around with. So these were different. All right, if we want blank, again, just completely blank is never-ending size, but you could also put in a blank page of a specific size by accessing the page templates inside the insert tab. There are some business ones that could be helpful, perhaps, like when you're managing a project. I could see that in an academic sense. Certainly some meeting notes format so that you remember to take care of certain important things if you're the treasurer for a club and you want to make sure that you're taking accurate meeting notes. And then in decorative, there's just lots of stuff that looks nice. So if you want to take your notes on paper that is visually attractive to you, there's lots of options here. You can find online options, and remember, so lots and lots and lots of options here. Thought there was one more specifically here that I wanted to show you, but you can look online for more templates. You can also, remember, create your own, like design it any way you want to. So you could put your own personal logo on there and a graphic that makes you happy, and then you could save that as a template, and you could make it the default template. And then every time you open up a page in that section, you would get that default template. Even if you didn't want that default template, you could change it to something else. But when you hit add page, you would get it, which is nice. Down here, again, you've got some options on always use a specific template. So my current default is set as the notebook paper. But again, if you find one that you love, or if you create one that you love, you can make it the default, which is lovely. Okay, now I think I got everything I wanted to do in this section. Okay, so that's it for this one.